Welcome to the Air Combat Simulation Podcast, brought to you by BVR Productions. Together with content creators, mission builders, experts, and enthusiasts, we explore the comprehensive world of combat aircraft simulation.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Air Combat Sim Podcast. This episode we're going to be talking to Heatblur and TrueGrit. They had some exciting news announced about a month and a half ago now with the Eurofighter being developed in conjunction between the two companies. So we're going to talk about that and whatever else comes up. And today with me co-hosting is Tricker. How you doing, Tricker?
What's up, guys? Doing good.
Good. What have you been up to? Anything fun?
Just been flying a lot, man. Got home yesterday.
Nice. Awesome. We got Rob. How you doing, Rob?
Good.
Anything new exciting in your part of the town?
Nothing new here in Texas. No more power outages. But we just from on the BVR front, we've been working on the Merge podcast and getting that rolled out, and then working on some other good stuff.
Yeah, I've been editing those videos for YouTube for the Merge, and I'm hooked for episode 6. I have 5 in my hands. I'm going to listen to it before everybody else, so lucky me. But that's been a great series for sure, and if you guys haven't checked it out, I would highly recommend it. And then I actually don't know who's from who for the most part as far as teams go, but we have Nick from Heatblur. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Awesome. And I think you have Iron Mike with you as well, correct?
That's correct.
That's right. How is everybody doing? Hi.
Doing well.
Hey.
Good to have you guys. And then is everybody else from TrueGrit, I'm guessing?
That's correct.
So we have Tits from TrueGrit. How you doing, Tits?
Hey, good. Hi, guys.
Not gonna lie, that was fun to say. And then we have Giro. How you doing, Giro?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having us on the channel here.
Absolutely, man. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate you guys setting the time aside to do this. So, and then we have the Fragger. How you doing, Fragger?
I'm fine, thank you.
Can I omit the in front of that? Just to call you Fragger. Is that all right?
That's okay.
Okay, cool. Rolls off the tongue a little easier. And I guess we should ask what you guys what your roles are specifically with what you guys are doing. So if Tits, if you could tell us what your role is on the team.
Sure. Well, I'm pretty much Gero's number 2 in TrueGrit, and my role is most of the time getting the Eurofighter experience. I do have like 1,000 real flying hours and 1,600 total to the development crews and so on, and I'm of course later on the chief test pilot, so everything has to go through me.
Awesome. That's awesome. Wow, that's a lot of hours. I didn't realize you guys had somebody who is that seasoned. That's awesome.
So everything goes through Tits.
Everything goes through Tits.
That's good.
And then we have Giro. What's your role or job with TrueGrit?
Yeah, I'm CEO of TrueGrit.
Okay.
So I founded the whole idea of TrueGrit,
Awesome.
found that awesome name of the company, and like Tits said, I'm also a former Eurofighter pilot, 15 years instructor pilot on that. Before that, 10 years of Phantom time, F4 Phantom. Yeah, so that is my role.
Awesome. I like it. And then Fragger. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, who'd you fly with? Like what country?
Germany.
I figured, but just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that's
Is
right.
most of your team from Germany?
At least the team you have here right now, yeah.
Okay.
Cool. And then Fragger, how about you? What's your role at TrueGrit?
I'm a 2D 3D guy here at TrueGrit, and I was modeling the Eurofighter cockpit. And probably most of you know that I'm the guy with the W105.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for showing up for this. This is a pleasure. I guess we just start with how the whole partnership came to be. How did you guys end up starting to work together? Did one of you reach out to the other, or how'd that all come to pass?
Well, maybe I can tell you that from the start off. From True Grit's perspective, we started off as just True Grit doing this, obviously. So after a while, I, at least on my side, figured over I mean, we were a very small startup on this, right? I mean, it's our first project we started on DCS developing. So after a while, it became pretty clear how complex that really is, getting in these details, and what kind of, let's say like team proficiency you really need to do this to the perfection we announced and that we are really also shooting for. At some point, I decided on or at least I calculated that the team really needs to grow massively to reach a timeline that is acceptable for everybody, for us and the community. So that would have meant increasing the team at True Grit massively, or join forces and look for professionals that are around since many years. And so obviously I just contacted the best of the best, which is Heatblur, with Nick, and found him, talked to him, and I think that was the beginning of a wonderful affair.
That's awesome. How long have you guys been working together? Has it just been recent since the announcement, or have you guys decided you guys were going to work together months and months ago and kind of been hush hush about it?
Yeah, it's a bit more like the latter. So we did this, the setup of this idea, obviously, for quite some time. That was unfortunate, and I need to apologize a bit on that on the community also. That why at least we on TrueGrit's side went a bit silent for a much too long time, to be honest, because that process took a bit longer. Obviously, the whole COVID thing and so on, that didn't help also. But yeah, we did this in the background for quite some time, and finally then announced it. So, but yeah, so setting up the arrangements together, Nick with me mainly. That took some time, and that was the time spent.
How long have you guys been working on the Eurofighter from the start?
You mean at True Grit?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did this for what is it? Yeah, well, if you start counting the really having the idea, setting up the company, and starting the research and all that, that process is maybe something like 2 years. Really starting coding and so on, really getting into more details, like a year or so, and then we had the process of starting to interact with Heatblur a bit more. So yeah, that's about the timeline there.
So what was the inspiration? Like what made you want to build a Eurofighter for DCS?
Well, it's kind of easy because I'm like I said, a 15-year-long instructor pilot on the Eurofighter, and if you look at what's currently around, that's not really much to talk about. If you take it from a point where you look at what DCS can deliver as a simulation platform, and yeah, so that I think that was something really missing in the community. And again, myself being a pilot on that, I was like, well, maybe we should really do this and go for it. And after having a talk with Eagle Dynamics, with Nick Gray, Simon Pearson, it became pretty clear that they were also really happy about this idea, obviously. And yeah, so we started to do this.
Would you think about an F4 since you flew F4s before too?
I am personally always thinking about an F4.
Okay. Just had to put it out there.
Yeah, sure. Makes perfectly sense.
Were you a DCS pilot before you came up with the company and decided to do this, or was this more of a business initiative?
No, I mean, I'm really next to my military career, if you like. I mean, I've been for 30 years with the German Luftwaffe. In parallel to that, I was also really a nerd on the flight sim community idea.
Gotcha.
So I really started building a very benign, but at this time I was proud of my first pit. I built this out of wood basically, and that was based on Falcon 4. So the F-16 version, right? And later on then switched a little bit also to the Falcon BMS side. So I mean, and I really started off with like a C64, the Commodore, and Amiga, and so I had a really
Yep.
long career on this, and so that is nothing new to me. And as DCS came out, as the DCS version, I started doing that also, for sure. Yeah, not
Gotcha.
as a business thing, but just privately also.
Is what does the partnership bring to the table that you need? Is it just people? Is it expertise? Is it what exactly were you looking for when you decided to venture that route with partnership with Heatblur?
All of that, what you just said. I mean, obviously, it is the expertise is so massively ahead of what we could, do in this little time, obviously, and the perfection of what Heatblur did in the past and is still doing. That is something. I mean, yeah, obviously, that is boosting all our efforts. Besides just having the bigger team in the background, obviously doing that the whole coding stuff. So it's pretty much all of above.
Gotcha. I mean, Heatblur's just okay.
Yeah. Let's put it this way. They're okay. Yeah.
Yeah, here goes Nick. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you guys hope for more collabs in the future with? I mean, I don't know what your partnership is, but other companies, or does Heatblur even looking for more collabs in the future? Maybe the other direction there.
Well, at least at this time, Nick should say something to this.
Yeah.
We're always looking for partnerships, I think, especially those that kind of synergize with our thoughts of what quality flight simming should be. So I don't think we ever close the door on anything. And I mean, we've had discussions in the past, and we're having discussions now about various things, and some of them do work out, some of them don't. But I think, I mean, our ultimate goal is always to just make really, really good products. And if we can partner with people who make that happen, like TrueGrit here for the Eurofighter, then we'll happily do it. I mean, I find great joy in working with interesting and cool people across the globe. So that's absolutely very high on our priority list, I think.
That's cool. We did a podcast, I think 2 podcasts back now, maybe 3, or with some custom mod makers, not so much the paid ones, but the free ones. And I realize there's a lot of talent out there. So yeah, that's cool to hear that you guys would be open to that kind of stuff too in the future if they were open to it as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I have a member of the A4 team who's now part of Heatblur, and he's just downstairs in my house here. We're having a Heatblur team get together right now, so that's
Oh,
one
nice.
example of how we kind of work with people in the community and kind of do that as well. It's great. We love it.
Even the
That's
wing
awesome.
came into being a bit like that, right? I mean,
Yeah, actually, the Vigan was a community squadron project who kind of then got merged into our team, and that's kind of how we brought that project into harbor, so to speak. So it's definitely a great way to build products. It has some negatives, of course, in terms of you're working with people that you might not have experience with before and so on, but usually it unlocks more doors than it actually closes, which is very cool. And the Eurofighter, I think, is a great example of that, because Heatblur, I guess for all of our talents and great engineering staff, we would have absolutely no chance to build a Eurofighter if it wasn't for the great people at TrueGrit. So it's really, the coming together of 2 teams like this is something that makes the project very, very viable. And that's very cool, I think, for the community as well, because I mean, we all kind of benefit from it at the end in terms of content and cool modules and aircraft that we can actually enjoy and simulate and experience from a simulation perspective. So absolutely.
That's awesome. And I think part of the appeal there also is that 2 of the people on the team are also pilots. That's got to help a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
It kind of came out of left field.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't expecting a Eurofighter. I thought it would have been too difficult to like get unclassified, I guess, material to build the Eurofighter. Like, how hard was that to like navigate around?
You're totally right. I mean, and that is still a process. One must be honest on this. We decided very early on to go to Eurofighter company and also to the NETMA, who is like the military arm of selling the aircraft, to incorporate them into the idea and bringing them into the team, let's say, at least in the perspective that we get a license from Eurofighter, that we can use the name, and don't have any legal problems on that end.
Right.
From the classification issue, that is something that the NETMA needs to that we still are in progress of doing, and that also kind of could mean that there is some certain aspects of it that can't be shown or need to be adjusted or something. But I think that is something we've been very open about. I think everybody understands in the community, if you're really into this kind of, if you want to hit like with DCS this kind of perfection on such a module, that there is, if it is so modern and advanced on in the timeline that is still so active, that obviously not all of the capabilities probably can be shown. I mean, that is, I think, for sure, and that there will be compromises, and we hope that we can do this to the highest level we can, but it can means also being allowed to, and we're working on this to get them into our development process so early on that it's not like a big surprise at the end, where they pull the plug and it can't be done, so that would be completely stupid. So that's why we do this this way currently, and up to now it works, so we will see how that progresses.
It makes sense.
Will there be a point, you think? I mean, relatively soon, obviously, moving goalposts happen, and you don't know how long certain things are going to take. So not trying to hold you to anything, but early on in the development, and especially with the community that is so rabid about wanting to get this thing in their hands in the first place and see what is available, do you think you'll be able to release at least a statement as far as here's what we can do and here's what we can't do based on this classified data?
Yeah, So I think we'll be quite honest and forthcoming about all kinds of things like that, because I think something that we pride ourselves on is making sure that we're always informing everybody about our products and kind of how realistic they are. And if we have to make compromises or something, we're not going to hide that and kind of be coy about it, because it doesn't make any sense, and it's unfair to everybody, right? However, obviously that's kind of like a broad statement, and we might not put out a statement saying this is wrong or this is wrong. I think it's more of like an organic situation in a certain sense, right? It's quite difficult to sometimes quantify how different, I guess, it is. That said, I mean, again, like Gero said, I mean, our top priority is to get as close as we possibly can, truly. And I think that's a hallmark of our modules and aircraft in general. And I don't think we would have undertaken this partnership and this aircraft in general if we didn't feel that we had a good chance of getting there to a reasonable level. But absolutely, we'll try to be as honest and forthcoming as we can about what is possible and what isn't, because the environment is the way it is. We are making exact replicas, hopefully, of the real thing, and that comes with a lot of baggage. So it's definitely a fluid and organic kind of situation. And of course, I mean, once we do release, we'll have the feature list there and all these kinds of things that hopefully solidify for everybody what we've actually built and what we're actually asking everybody to buy and enjoy, right? So hopefully we'll be as transparent as ever on this point.
It's also always about to have it reasonable, right? And then, customers or the pilots, the sim pilots sometimes hit a system and then they go like digging into what's available, what's publicly available. They try to verify, is it correct like that? And that's also something where we will stand on the same foot we've been standing all those years along, is that we're absolutely 100% honest. If somebody asks us, hey, you guys, how did you do that? Was it done either by SME feedback? Do you have some sources you can back it up from? Or if it is something that is approaching reality, what is the reasoning behind it, and how did you make the decision to get there? And I think if you're transparent in these things and it's clear to the customer how did they get there, then I think it's not a problem. If, for example, you hit a system that is maybe not 100% on that thing in an aircraft like the Eurofighter, but on the other hand, of course, the goal is always to get to the realism first as much as you can, right?
So can we talk about like what version of the Eurofighter are we getting, and like what are the differences?
Yeah, because we had so many discussions about this. I mean, obviously, and that question is totally, valid. The thing is that if you even say it's the Eurofighter that we're doing, by just saying the Eurofighter, it is already something's not right, because there are so many versions of the Eurofighter currently in service across all these nations. Because the whole concept of the Eurofighter is that, and it's like the Typhoon, right, in British English. The concept of it is that every of these nations, also the export nations, which came on later in the program, that they can customize the whole aircraft to their specific needs, and they can choose of a variety of available weapon systems, and also on radar types and whatever. It's like not like a Tesla, but maybe like a Mercedes, where you can choose between like 800 possibilities and configure your car basically. So that is the first thing, where you go like, okay, so you have like a German flying that version, and he has a certain expectation of what is in there, and then you have a Brit, and he says it's completely not my jet here. So it's not only the delivery that makes a difference. Obviously, it's all the systems and available weapons and so on. So obviously, being the German in the German Luftwaffe here, we decided on starting with the German Luftwaffe version first, because that is the closest I am to it, and so it's like from a personal perspective. But it is also something from the realizability, from getting the data and stuff, which is kind of like the process we described earlier, where you can get to first on the systems and have the correct companies and so on. So that is the first version, will be like the German one, more closely. And if you go then more into the details, I mean, the pros, I mean, there are some obviously active Eurofighter pilots who will then have the module on the PC and start simming it. They would know all the details of all the very different systems and so on. And that is again something where we have to check what can be released, and then it is something where we can get enough data that it can be recreated perfectly enough. So what I'm saying is, like, we start off with this German version, and which will be an air-to-air version initially, so to have really a good air-to-air platform initially. Then we are probably then progressing to the air-to-surface capability, and then advance to all the other different weapons that can be shown and can be included. And then you, as the community guy, you can then later choose and configure your aircraft like you would. And like, maybe that is then like the Saudi Arabia version, or it is the Italian one, or whatever, so you can configure that one later on.
Okay. Which one do you think is the best, in your opinion? The German one?
Nope.
No?
No, the problem is, if you're saying the best, then you would say like which has the most modern system available in the and well, currently, if you're looking currently at the market, I would say it's like the Saudi Arabia version, because they are so rich, they just included everything they could.
Okay.
And also the initially rich German country, decided on having one version, and yeah, but it is kind of limited in the capabilities in the weapon mix that Germany decided on, and the Saudis did the 150% version. Yeah, so, but again, I mean, that is, you can do this as the community guy later on and say, okay, I want to put this weapon on, if that is really down the road, then
Yeah.
I hope I did say this right, Nick.
Yes, absolutely. That I think that summarizes it very well.
No, I just wanted to say it's also, from the Heatblur perspective, it's not a new approach really, because the F-14 also is an aircraft that is basically dominated by being a patchwork aircraft, right? You will find features of an A version in a D, you will find features of a B version in a late A, and so on and so forth. And the community, of course, likes guidelines like talking in block 59 or 95 or block 135 or things like that. But when you talk to maintainers or pilots, they don't go by these things, right? They don't classify the aircraft necessarily in blocks. And of course, some aircraft are more clear cut in these things, but we're already used to basically dealing with aircraft where you have to research a certain system also outside of that frame, or you find that certain airframes had systems from different time spans and so on and so forth. So it's not something really new to us in terms of development as well.
Okay. And then I was going to ask Fragger, since he's the 2D, 3D modeler, about the panel. Like, is it like, how'd you make the panel for the Eurofighter, basically? Is it like a 3D scan or?
No, it's all made by eye. Yeah, but I think when I look at the cockpit now, everything fits. It was a huge way to go, but finally it fits everything. Yeah, even when you close the canopy, everything fits. Every hook, every pin, everything.
Have you done any other previous work that we know about, or is this like your first project?
Okay, as you may know, 105, and yeah, for TCS 105, yes.
Yeah, and I think what Fragger means essentially is that very, very often you'll find if you're modeling a complex project like an aircraft, which has a very, very detailed cockpit and exterior artwork and all these kinds of things, is if you've done something wrong, when you put everything together at the end, something might not fit. And
Yes,
if it does fit, it means either you've made the same mistake across many different places, but more likely you've gotten it right. Because the former would be like, I don't know, the holes in the cheese all lining up or something. It doesn't really happen, right? So, but the exterior is based on photogrammetry, which is nice. So we do have some ground truth, I guess you could call it, in terms of accuracy. And then obviously the Eurofighter is not the kind of jet, like the F-14, where you can, drive around 6 different museums and scan each one and compare the differences and get it down to each millimeter. But Fragger does, and we at Heatblur, we take that very seriously, especially in the age of VR. You need to get the artwork right. It's functionality beyond just looking pretty, right? So if something's off, you're not really experiencing what a real pilot would, and it can be as simple as the canopy frame being too thick, and that means that you're not really having the same SA as a real pilot would, to just a screw being misplaced, which is just an annoyance, especially for us who've created it. And then we can't enjoy the product, so we try to avoid those things as well.
And if there's anything that the DCS community is going to notify you of, is that screw.
Yes.
They're going to let you know right away.
Yes. Which is a good thing. We like it. We like it that way. Yeah. And it's a nice feeling for us too when you jump in an aircraft and you kind of know, especially in VR, you kind of know that it's accurate, right? It's I've had VR experiences where you kind of feel like, well, this is probably not how this is dimensioned in real life. And that's a feeling I try to avoid with our products, definitely, because just as an enthusiast of the thing, I mean, sure, you can go to a museum and sit in a Tomcat or Eurofighter or whatever, but you can't do it for a 10-hour stretch like you can at your desk. So making sure you get it right is pretty high on the priority list as well, actually.
All by eye, that's going to be pretty challenging, though. A lot of man hours, I would imagine.
Yes. Like laying a puzzle in 3D a little bit.
No.
In good hands, though.
Oh, it's in good hands, Alex is saying.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is his way of patting ourselves on the back, I think.
I'm patting Nick. I don't know anything about modeling or 3D stuff or texturing or anything, but these guys, they do a great job with that.
I believe from listening to a fighter pilot podcast on the Eurofighter, the Eurofighter has a voice system. Is that right?
It is, yeah. So it's a direct voice input, DVI it is called. So that was one of the very modern features as the Eurofighter was released in like 2003, 4-ish when I started flying it. If you would like to compare it to like your iPhone Siri or something, that is basically the idea. Without releasing too much of a secret there, but this is like kind of, it has been a rocky process in the real aircraft, let's say, of getting that files down into the aircraft that it really understands you. So it's not like an easy process like it is on the iPhone nowadays. So it's a bit more complex. And so we are also in discussion if we introduce it, I mean, it should, because in the very early versions it was in there anyways, and then we could have that discussion about like how realistic is it to build this aircraft? I mean, how realistic will the aircraft be finally on DCS? Because could that mean that the system doesn't work? Yes, is that realistic? Is it something the community wants? If like to 50% it didn't work in the beginning or something, right? So that is also a nice discussion to have, and yeah, but yeah, the short version is there is DVI in the aircraft, and so it's a nice feature probably.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah. You can say anything, right? I mean, you just because it's your voice file, and that is also some process that was really funny. I mean, because you're sitting on a chair in front of a PC, have your headset up, and then you train the voice commands. But later on, I mean, you're doing air combat with like 9Gs and pressure breathing mask, and so that is a completely different voice you're having there. So for a system that is not so tolerant on this, you can understand probably that not everything was understandable. So then the creative pilot went to the chair and the PC back and started trying to voice his voice like on the 9G. And if you see the guys in the room, trying to emulate like 9G on a desk and trying to do some voice, that was hilarious to see. Okay, and it didn't make better. Yeah, sure. So a good idea of the whole system is like if you imagine it's a single seat aircraft, right? So and there are some tasks that are for a single pilot in the cockpit at some points difficult to do. If you look, for example, like formation flying at night or in clouds or something, and you would have as a wingman flying really concentrated, looking and really staring outside, finding the spot and keeping the position. And if you would then have to change radio channels or squawk settings or something, this is, for example, a nice feature to just talk to the aircraft by pressing one button on your HOTAS that you have in your hand anyway, and then it dials in the frequency or something. So these are nice features. Same goes for like air combat situations, obviously, when you look around and you can tell the radar, for example, to lock a target or something. So these are features that are by nature smart and a good idea. Some features that the engineers put in are so complicated, like from the wording and phrasing, that a single button press on a screen or something, because you would have from the task management the ability to do would be much faster. So it has been over the years a learning process of where that feature really helps and is necessary.
Is it something you have to? Is it like an always active listening
No,
type of thing? You have to key it up.
it's like
The government
the
isn't
radio.
always listening, jabbers.
No, it's like the radio
That's what I was
button.
going for.
No, no, it's a radio button. Basically, you press in and say, and then you're talking to the aircraft.
Gotcha. Does anybody ever make a mistake where they push over the radio instead of?
Sure. Yeah, millions of times.
That's what I would do.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, again, I think it's a learning process of having such a
Yeah.
system and when to use it and how to use it. So, yeah, like every system.
What about getting the sounds for the jet? Are you guys gonna hopefully record them from the real thing, or do you have plans for that?
Um, I mean, sound tends to be a fairly contentious topic. I don't think we really have any plans to actually record specific sounds specifically for the module right now. But I think the difference with a modern aircraft like the Eurofighter is that there is actually a lot of material that you can source from various people. It can be airshow stuff. It can be, just kind of government released footage. And maybe we will get the opportunity to do so as well, either planned or impromptu. Again, could be at an air show or something like that, and kind of go from there. I think something we try to do is we definitely take sound very seriously. I come from the world of film where there's a saying that goes, you can have the most beautiful, every frame is a painting kind of cinematography. But if your sound's poor, then it just looks low budget and poor. So sound is something that's constantly on my mind, and we need to do better there, first of all, but we're also going to be investing more there and making sure that the Eurofighter sounds like the real thing, but that it also just kind of makes you immersed and makes you feel good. I don't think we'll go away from our kind of slightly Hollywoodized soundscape, especially in cockpits, where you have a little bit more loud switches and these kinds of things, and a lot of rattles and buffets, because I think that just immerses you and kind of replaces some of the haptic feedback you'd have flying the real thing. But obviously samples should be from the real thing, and we do the same with the F-14. We've heard various things about the fact that it doesn't sound anything like the real thing, but we're actually using samples from the real thing. But unfortunately, it's very difficult to recreate digitally exactly as the real thing sounds. But hopefully, with the amount of material available for the Eurofighter and the fact that it's in active duty and flying and kind of available, will alleviate that a lot.
Cool. Can we talk about the air-to-air capability and the ever-impending compassion from the community about said missiles?
About the Comet?
Yep. What are your plans for the Meteor? I mean, obviously that's a relatively new missile that probably doesn't have a lot of public data.
No, so from our perspective, from like a development perspective, so what we'll be doing is taking much the same approach as we did with the AIM-54. And I don't really mean from an implementation perspective, I mean more from a research one. So we've actually already performed CFD for both the IRIS-T and the Meteor. And that's really going to lay the groundwork for all the work that comes after that. And I think something that's going to be very important for us is that we actually open source a lot of our research. Because again, just like with the AIM-54, I think it's important to have transparency in the process and give people confidence in what it's actually doing in game. The second part of the equation is, of course, things like guidance and the fact that they're both going to be quite unique pieces of ordnance in DCS, and we are going to be working much more closely with our partners at Eagle Dynamics to actually implement them into the game than we did with the AIM-54. And hopefully that way we will avoid any potential pitfalls in terms of, things like desync, I guess, is the thing on everybody's mind. But I'm even thinking of things that missiles in DCS can't do right now, which is, for example, turning on and off their engines multiple times. So there's going to be a lot of work there, and it's something that we are going to involve our partners with very, very early on. And I think most of it will be based on our open sourced research and kind of what we can do, from our side and avoid any classified pitfalls, so to speak, and that sort of thing. So our ultimate goal really is to, when we release the aircraft with the Meteor and the IRIS-T, that everybody in the community is able to say, okay, we've seen the research and at bare minimum, it's reasonable. And if we make mistakes in our research, I mean, the whole point of it is to be kind of like the community peer reviewing it. I guess that's the kind of point. And if something's off or something doesn't seem like it's in the bounds of realism, then we will take another look. We're not opposed whatsoever to going back and changing a lot of stuff. And I think that's a mantra we'll keep, especially for these two missiles, which can be very contentious. I think they have a potential to become very contentious, and that's something we're quite cognizant of, and I hope we can avoid as much as we can through full transparency.
And let me maybe add to that credibility, let's say, on that weapon systems. Like I said, with the Eurofighter company, our approach has been also for the weapons to contact the manufacturers for the IRIS-T, that is Diehl Defense Company in Germany, and MBDA for the Meteor, which is an international consortium. And with Diehl Defense, we are in a cooperation already, and they are really actually delivering the releasable data that is open, releasable to public. We got also like blueprints from the missile, so that it's like from the building aspect, from the modeling, it is completely the best you can have because it's from the manufacturer. And again, I mean, from the flight model data, we even get the releasable data from them directly. So I mean, I think it can't be better. in this way, and they are very interested, the defense in this case also, interested in having a really good representation of their missile, because they also see the value in, having such a community and having not a bad image in like a kind of shitty missile represented there. So they have a high interest in that is as close as possible as can be done. So it's also a bit maybe a newer approach, but I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's different. That's cool.
Yeah.
As far as the open source stuff goes, is that just for the flight model, I would assume? I mean, you can't open source so much as ED's implementation, I would imagine.
Well, what I mean by that is kind of what we did with the AIM-54, where we really just published a white paper on our findings in terms of how it would perform, right?
I gotcha.
I think we'll go deeper this time. I can't really promise anything right now, but I think these two cases are more complex. But again, this would all be based on kind of our in-house research and not anything we get from other parties. And I think the reason for that is also that it's something that we have to do anyways, right? So we do have to take all this data in that we can, then perform our own research and kind of come up with something that makes sense. So it's a process that's going to happen anyways. And if the end result, the best end result for us internally is actually to produce something like a white paper that we then internally kind of review and kind of criticize and kind of figure out have we made any mistakes. But the byproduct of that is really that we are able to actually release that and kind of involve then the broader community into that discussion. And I think that's something that's very cool because it, even from the perspective of marketing, let's say, right? It kind of, I guess, helps us show how deep we're trying to go, because I think there are instances where we simulate something very deeply or we think about something very, very deeply, but it's not really seen in the end product. So it's a cool opportunity to also show like how much work we're actually willing to invest in doing to actually make sure that this is as realistic as we can, because one of the pillars of DCS is realism, and I really don't want to undermine that with the Eurofighter in any way, and especially not with the weapons, because they influence other modules. The other aspect would be the flight model, I guess, that influences other modules and how they interact with each other. So very, very important we get that right.
Yeah. I was going to ask, like, can you talk about how many weapons does it usually carry for air-to-air, and are those going to be, like, day one when people get the Eurofighter? Are all the weapons for air-to-air going to be released for everybody?
Yeah, well, it depends obviously what type of air-to-air mission you want to fly. But if you're going directly, for example, for BVR stuff, you can easily have like 4 Meteors, 2 Amrams, 2 Iris-T on there, or you can mix it to the typical, for example, 6x2 or stuff like that. So 6 Amrams, 2 Iris-T, and of course not to forget the Mauser 27mm gun. And basically you can choose. You could also use just 4 Iris-T and your gun if you're just going to a dogfight, or depending on your opponent, of course. And if you just want to train pure BFM, for example, you can just go just by using your gun and 2 Iris-T. So you can mix it as you want, basically. Besides maybe the 4 fuselage stations, they are reserved for the Meteor and the Amrams.
Okay. Because the video you guys put out was freaking amazing. That was a pretty awesome video, so really liked it.
If what you can see in the video, which the Heatblur brought up, is already awesome, and later on, if the community is really doing dogfighting, it's not gonna be like an overpowered, overturning performance jet. We will show this thing especially clean. It's a beast, and it can maneuver tight, as we will present you guys.
Good to hear. And then I guess my last question would be like, I know it has super cruise ability. Is that going to be included in the DCS version as well?
It has super cruise, depending, of course, on the drag index. So If you think about if you're having like the full air-to-air loadout and 2 external tanks or even 3 external tanks, it might be just scratching the supersonic, but especially clean, you will be able to fly or do your super cruise for sure.
Cool. I think you guys answered a lot of the questions I had just in. I didn't even have to ask them, so that was awesome. Is there anything else you guys want to add or tell the community or put out there? Or,
You want to throw any timelines in there?
yeah, timelines that I kind of steered away from that because I figured you guys didn't.
We can definitely do that, but that's my job is to come in and try to ask that question.
No, I mean, we're always. I mean, we don't really shy away from it. It's just it tends to turn into like a non-answer. That's the kind of thing. But um, I don't know. Like, so I guess one thing to note is that we're doing a lot at Heatblur right now. And we're actually in a period right now, and there's a lot happening at TrueGrid, so it's a very exciting period of time. And I say that because there's a lot stuff going on that I guess people don't know about, but our team has grown bigger than it ever has before. It's ever been before, and we're just kind of pushing ahead on all fronts. However, I mean, the Eurofighter is still early on. That's just simply the case. So we're not really saying any timelines because we'd probably not be even close to hitting them, and it can be, we could give some timelines like 2025. So like give ourselves a huge berth or something, but that's not fair either because then it's kind of like the opposite direction or something. So I guess summarizing is just to say it's still early on. But we'll basically our main priority will be to keep everybody in the loop and kind of just explain what we're doing and where we are. And I think as our roadmap gets unveiled and everything that we're working on, gets unveiled, then it'll also become a little bit more clear where each product kind of slots in because we've got things which are very, very early, like the A6, which we kind of announced first because of the way we had done the AI thing and so on. So it's I understand it's also a little bit confusing for everybody right now, but my non-answer essentially is that it's early on, but we're just working really hard on it and hoping to get it to you guys as soon as we possibly can.
It's a perfect non-answer.
That is Nick in perfection ice skating.
Since you brought it up, can we talk about the A6 at all?
Sure, absolutely.
I know you said it was early on. I know that the initial goal was to make an AI model. Is that anywhere near?
Yeah, I mean that's approaching completion. We're like on. I would say, if I would categorize our products, I would say the A6 AI is kind of part of the F14,
Right.
together with the Forrestal and the early A and a couple of other things. So we are focusing on those things as part of the F14 rather than a part of them, like as a part of the A6 itself. But I would say the A6 AI is the lowest priority in terms of stuff that's missing in the F14. So the highest one I would say is the Forrestal right now, and things like Jester Lantern and these kinds of things. And then the A6 kind of comes in after that. Yeah, it's very early on. We're kind of like still finding our feet with that project. We've got other things that are planned to come out before that. But we did announce it because it was kind of like we were quiet for a very long time, and it was known we're doing the AI one anyways, and it was a good opportunity to show it off in the wonderful trailer ED did for their new clouds and so on. So it was kind of cool just to be able to say like, yeah, it's coming, we're doing it. It's an exciting period of time for us. We're enthusiasts as well. You really have to bite your tongue to kind of not tell everybody what you're working on at a given moment. And the A6 was our outlet a little bit. So it's going to be one of the earliest announcements we've ever done in that respect.
Did you guys always know you were going to make that, even when you were talking about doing the AI stuff?
Kind of, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is also based on whether we have a license agreement with our partners at ED, these kinds of things. And we we genuinely try to respect them in the sense that we don't, before we've signed something and before something's set in stone, we don't even hint at something actually being a flyable module, because I think it's just unfair as partners in these kinds of things. So it's a bit, I guess it's frustrating for people sometimes that we're so coy or so kind of secretive or something, but it's also about, just when we say something, we mean it essentially, right? So if we're gonna do something, we're actually gonna do it.
I like that approach more, to be honest.
We much prefer showing off stuff early before it's finished or close to before it's finished. But like Nick just said, the A6, with people figuring it out anyway, and then you just don't want to take people for stupid or, play their noses with that kind of stuff. And then also with TrueGrit, that merger, that partnership, and the announcement just had to be also at a time to alleviate the time where there was no communication about the Eurofighter. So both announcements are exceptionally early for what we would normally go for, right? So that's something we kindly ask the community to understand. And of course, there's other things that are in the pipeline, and those will be announced as we would usually do, and then people will see what's all cooking in the house of Heatblur in the background.
Sweet, thanks for sharing.
Well, cool. If we don't have anything else, I'm going to wrap it up there. Anybody? No? Going once?
No, I just would like to invite the community to not see the Eurofighter as something contagious, especially the PvP community, I would say. Embrace the fact that it's going to bring a new challenge to the game, that's definitely for sure. But also let's embrace the fact that DCS is in fact a sandbox where we aim for realistic modules, and these can be used however people see fit. And if the Meteor in some scenarios is too much, then you always have the possibility to remove it from that match, or to put it specifically there because it brings that beautiful challenge for a long-range shot you want to emphasize in that event, and so on and so forth. So I'd really like to invite everybody, to embrace the fact that the Eurofighter is going to bring a beautiful challenge to the game and a really nice new approach to BVR, and shine a new light from a different point of view on the whole scene of PvP and just realistic BVR simulation or whatever people do in DCS with it.
I look forward to it. Kind of like the F-14 when it came in.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys all again for showing up and taking the time out of your day to have this interview with us. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to doing another one when it gets closer, both about, about anything you guys have. So keep me posted, and we'll do it again.
Thanks
Sure.
so much.
Hey,
Thank you very much. It was awesome.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys. Anytime again.
Thanks again, and
Have a great day and night, everyone.
yes, agreed.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See you soon again. Love you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Air Combat Sim. Don't forget to subscribe or tell a friend about it. You have a question, idea for an episode, or a special guest you'd like us to invite? Feel free to reach out on Facebook, Discord, or via email. Air Combat Sim was brought to you by BVR Productions.